y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know, the show where I virtually invite people into the blog cabin to chat about life. And today we're chatting all about climate change with the author of Kobee the Manatee. It's a series of children's books that talks about climate change. And this particular one is Climate Change and the Great Blue Hole Hazard. But Robert, thank you for coming. Before we talk about climate change, tell us who you are and how you got involved in this.
Okay, basically, I was born in Philadelphia and grew up in the suburbs of Philly. And it was ever since I was a kid, I've always would like researching. Of course, I like children's books like Green Eggs and Ham, Dr. Seuss, but more so I'd gravitate towards research, science, weather, environmental things. And I think that's how I got an interest, not only climate change, but manatees. People think when I do author visits, at schools, oh, you're from Florida, right? I say, no, I'm from Philadelphia. And they look shocked. But for some strange reason, I guess when I was young, 6, 7 years old, I must have came across a picture or some research on a manatee. And I said, this is fantastic. And ever since then, I had a passion for it. Speed forward now. I got interested in climate change, I would say a good 20 or so years ago. But the reason I wanted to write this book now is because, oh, by the way, it takes us about 2 to 3 years to write each of the books. I have 4 books in the series. I do at least 30 drafts and send it to my editor. And then my illustrator, Lauren Gallegos, it'll take her another couple of years to get all the spreads just right. So each of our books is about 2 to 3 years in the making. So when this was completed, it was actually going to be released last October of 2020. But again, we were in the grips of COVID-19 and just like the whole world shut down. So I couldn't do anything with that. So here we are, fast forward to September 2021, I released the book. And I'm interested in climate change is because, again, as I gravitate towards science, I see so many factors where they're just being enhanced by climate change. We have record-breaking temperatures. We had a drought in California. We had severe fires in California. And now on record, this is the most intense, they call it the river of oceans, the river of something, the river of water or something that's coming across the Pacific. And that is basically from climate change. This is a new record. They never had a barometric pressure this low or this much water fall at once. Me being in the Philadelphia area, I'm in Bucks County, just north of the city. Back in July, we had a record we never had before. We had 8 inches of rain in about, I guess it was 5-6 hours. The Vine Street Expressway, which runs from East Philadelphia to West Philadelphia, was the water level was almost up to the bridges where cars will cross. Never seen anything like it. Never. People had to be airlifted out of their homes, things like that. So these are just more examples why climate change is so important. Right now we have a nor'easter. And it's a strong one, and it's going to be intense. We have winds probably gusting to 35 miles an hour tonight, with more heavy rain coming back. I already here in Bucks County, I recorded 5 inches of rain. So climate change is really important to my heart.
So why did you decide to focus instead of like the adults? Why did you decide to focus on children's books and do that and focus on the younger generation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always had an interest in kids. I don't have any kids, but I've always had an interest in kids. Especially when I go out, you see them they'll always turn around and make funny, I make funny faces at them sometimes, and it brings a smile to their face. And I said, I've always loved children. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make sure I always picture myself, reading this to the child. And it's important, but I've always loved children. When I do the author visits, it's the same way. The children and I react. And then when the presentation's done, a lot of them will come up and hug me. And that just gives you, it's a priceless feeling. It really is. So that's why I picked writing books for children.
So what made you decide why did you come up with the idea of doing the Kobee Manatee books? I mean, was it all of a sudden one day you're just like, oh, I'm going to write this book? Or was it just something gradually that you finally decided to do it?
Okay. Basically back in, let's see, what was it? I was a copywriter for a few years in Philadelphia, but we had the Great Recession of 2008 and I was downsized in 2009 and I couldn't really get back to the level I was at. So I said, you know what, Bob? I started, saying, all right, this may be a silver lining. It's a new window. I have a musical background, I have a creative background in writing, and I have a business background. I went to Temple University with a business degree, and I said, you know what? I'm going to put all these things in a mixing bowl and mix them up, and I'm going to start writing a children's book. It was back in June 2010 when I first had the concept. Of course, I wanted to use a manatee since I had a passion for manatees. And I said, you know what? I want to do this right. So I made sure I planned everything out just right. And I said, I'm going to trademark this character because my mantra is what Walt Disney's concept and branding did with the mouse, I'm going to do with the manatee. So that back then, that's my mantra. So I trademarked. Well, before Kobee, we had Cody, C-O-D-Y manatee. And again, since I was on the road of trademarking, I said, there's too many Cody things, Cody pajamas, Cody this, Cody that. And I think the first one or the second one was Marvin the manatee. But Marvin, alliteration, and I learned that from author schools and things, going to seminars. Alliteration isn't that big today. It wasn't during Mickey Mouse time, many decades ago. But today, I said, well, we can't do that. And as I did more research, the Kobee thing just came to me. It was Kobee, and it didn't dawn when I read Kobee, there was very little trademarked information and products on the test search, it's called. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do Kobee Manatee. And it didn't dawn on me till a few months later that Kobee has two E's in the end of Kobee, and Manatee has two E's at the end of Manatee. So there's some more. I have so many interesting coincidences through this whole project. So that's when the Kobee Manatee was born in the summer of 2010. And my first book, like I said, it takes Lauren and I a good 3 years. So the first book was released in November of 2013, Kobee Manatee Heading Home to Florida. Second book, which deals all about weather, was released in, I think that was September 2015. By the way, it's so important for me to have the educational component for children. I just didn't want to do a children's book per se, but I wanted to do a children's educational picture book. So each of my installments, I bring in a visiting expert so they can collaborate with me and make sure I have all the facts correct. For instance, for the first book, Kobee Manatee Heading Home to Florida, it's all about manatees. I had to get my passion out in book one. And so I brought in Dr. Katie Tripp from Jimmy Buffett's Save the Manatee Club in Maitland, Florida. In book two, Kobee Manatee, A Wild Weather Adventure, I brought in Rob Marciano. He's the ABC senior news meteorologist. And Rob can be seen on Good Morning America and also ABC World News Tonight. For book three, Kobee Manatee Shipwrecked Sea Friends, I brought in, and I was really proud of this too, I brought in Fabien Cousteau so he could help me with the reef fish identification. Fabien is the oldest grandson of legendary ocean pioneer Jacques Cousteau. And finally, for the current release, the fourth installment, I contacted Dr. Tracy Fanera, and Tracy was more than willing to help me with the facts with climate change. That's her cup of tea, climate change. And Tracy can be seen on the Weather Channel as a visiting expert, and she's also seen on their Weird Earth series that airs at nighttime.
Go ahead. Yeah. So how did you get all these people to collaborate with you?
I feel it was just the heavens on my side. I mean, they all agreed to do it. These people are high profile people. And I think I was just blessed to get all these wonderful people, wonderful experts involved. So we have a really credible children's book series now.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, right off the bat, you had Jacques Cousteau's grandson. I mean, all these people that you wouldn't think ordinary people would not involve, and yet you were, like you said, blessed to be able to have all these people involved in your books.
Absolutely, and that's one thing I'm really proud of. To say we have this project out and it's really good, it's really educational, it's really entertaining. And by the way, going back to my belief in climate change, each of my books is printed in the United States, in Wisconsin. But more importantly, I made sure that the paper I use is FSC certified, Forest Stewardship Council, that means. That means that my printer needs to be certified and all the forests are regulated by the FSC. And if you look at the back of each of my books, or even in the front, you'll see that there's a little green box there that says FSC, and that's the FSC certification. So that's really, really important to me. So I made sure back in 2010, I had all this planned out. I wanted to make sure I did it right.
Wow. And a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to write a book about climate change, but they're not thinking about all the other different components. Like you were thinking about the paper the book's printed on, you're thinking about the printer, you were thinking about all the other little extra things that go along with it. Wow.
Absolutely. I had to have a game plan. Again, I guess that's the business side of me, but I wanted to have a game plan and an outline, not only for the creative side of writing the characters into each installment, but also the business plan for, all right, how's this going to work? How are we going to scale up and that kind of thing? We now have ancillary products. I have a Kobee Manatee plush. As you can see them behind me there. And I have Kobee Manatee stainless steel drinks and a little straw. So I'm slowly scaling up. My goal is to eventually get another partner involved, and so we can scale up even more. So that's where I am.
Wow. So we need to take a quick commercial break, but then we'll be right back to talk about Kobee Manatee some more. And you're actually going to do something special that you've done with every book that you've done.
Oh, it's a little okay.
Hi, my name is Joanna, and I would like to share with you a little bit about Shores of Grace, Shores Philly. It's a ministry located in Philadelphia. The portion of Shores that I volunteer for goes into Kensington, an area greatly impacted by homelessness and addiction. And we go and we take love, food, clothing, snacks, conversation. We believe that it is a way that we can meet people right where they are and show them the love of Jesus. We have seen lives changed in big ways and in small ways, and we've built wonderful relationships with the people in the community. We have big plans, more we'd like to do, and we would appreciate any support, either through prayer or through donation. If you would like to donate, you can go to shoresofgrace.com, and in the menu, click on Donate. And we just ask that you put Philly in your donation comments. Thank you.
And we are back chatting with Robert, the author of Kobee Manatee. And one of the things he told me, I actually was researching him before we came on, is that with every book that he puts out, he writes a song. So I asked him before we came on, would he be interested? Would he like to sing the song? So have at it, Robert. Go ahead and sing your song.
This is just simply called the Climate Change Song. Here we go. And basically, each song that I write reflects the activity and the plot arc in each book. We left the Cayman Islands, and they were such a great thrill. Now we're off to see my cousin Quinn with her new Seagrass grill. Oh yeah. Then we saw this turtle with plastic caught on its face. We quickly solved its problem, but wow, oh, what a disgrace. All this pollution, it's hurting our world. These greenhouse gases, they need to be hurled right out of here. It's time to stop all this climate change. Our weather's turning out oh so strange, wouldn't you say? It's every day. Let's put a stop to this climate change. No planet B to rearrange the mistakes that were made. There's a quick little verse chorus of the song.
I love that. And it goes along with the book as well. And one thing that I love with the book, I'm a former teacher, so I love the practical tips that you give in the book about organizations that you can contact, as well as some of the things that you can do. Let's talk about how we can. One of the things that really stood out for me was the tips you said to fight against plastic litter.
Oh, yeah. Basically, There's a lot of finally this food markets. I know I have a good friend in Brigantine, New Jersey, and the food markets on the island there now, you're not allowed to use plastic bags anymore. You need to bring in reusable bags, cloth, cotton bags, which is excellent. So in the book, in my fourth installment, I tell the children, make your parents aware. All right, we want to start using reusable bags. We don't want to use plastic anymore. We want to join some of these organizations like 4ocean.org or Fabian Cousteau Ocean Learning Center .org. These organizations, and there's plenty more in the book, they all help work with reducing plastic pollution and attacking climate change head on. It's so important. Some other things that are important: instead of buying polyester clothes, polyester is simply plastic. That's all it is. It's much better to buy 100% cotton, 100% linen. They're natural fibers and that kind of thing. And go ahead.
That was one of the things that really shocked me, because I was like, I didn't know polyester was plastic. You wouldn't think about that with the clothing.
No, I mean, so as a child and for so many years, I wore a lot of polyester, that kind of stuff. But since I do more stuff in Florida now, I like linen because it's so humid down there and hot. Linen breathes. It's nice. And cotton.
I just love that. So how did you, once you decided to write your books, how did you get connected with your illustrator?
Good question. Actually, in my game plan, I made sure, since I was a children's author, I wanted to join the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, the scbwi.org. In that organization, you're going to find many, many, many hundreds of illustrators with samples of their work. That's how I found my illustrator, Lauren Gallegos. I loved the way on Lauren's portfolio at SCBWI, how wonderful she made the characters look. The expressions on the character's face. I said, you know what? Out of all these other hundreds of things I looked at, Lauren's jumped right out at me. And I said, you know what? I contacted Lauren, and gosh, I guess it was back in late 2010, early 2011, when we started collaborating together. I brought her on as my illustrator. And I'm not at all sorry I did that. She has phenomenal, stunning illustrations, especially the character emotions. That's so important.
That's so true. That's so true. And the fact that you actually trademarked Kobee Manatee and you're building a brand around it and making sure that someone you trust with that as well.
Absolutely. It's so important. And to bring that trust on, I like to tell not only my collaborators, but it's a win-win for both of us. That win-win for both of us really does establish the trust factor that you need as you advance in whatever life, whatever business you're in. I just happen to be in the children's book business, and it's so important to say this is a win-win for both of us, and that makes a big difference in building trust. It really does.
One of the things that really stood out for me in this book was the turtles, because as we were talking before we came on, I'm in North Carolina and you were talking about the Outer Banks, but sea turtles are huge in North Carolina, with the turtles being hatched, and they have the little safeguard. If you see a nest, you have to safeguard it. And the turtles, I think Nicholas Sparks has even written several scenes in his books and his movies where the turtles are hatching and the people are going to watch them. So I love the fact that you're talking about how important it is to save the sea turtles, as well as with the manatees as well.
Absolutely. This got me, I'm going back a few years because, like I said, I go to Florida in January and February to do author visits. And one of the stops is not only Blue Springs State Park, but on the Central Florida, Orange City, Florida, but also Manatee Lagoon in Riviera Beach, right next to West Palm. They're the same, West Palm Beach and Riviera Beach. They're right there. And we developed a nice friendship, Kate and I. And Kate also runs she's part of the Loggerhead Marine Life Center in Juno Beach. So for this newest book, I always was going to tell Kate, eventually, Kate, I'm going to get a turtle in this book for you. And that's what we did this time. We have Tamika, the loggerhead turtle. And that's why I did that. And we now have Kobee, well, the climate change book, because of the loggerhead turtle, also in the Marine Life Mammal at the Turtle Center in Juno Beach.
Wow.
So that's how the Tamika got in there.
I also see opportunities for you to put these in aquariums and national aquariums and things like that. Have you thought about doing that?
I'm looking into that. Yes, we're actually, well, again, meeting Dr. Tracy Finera. I met her at Moat Marine Aquarium in Sarasota. So we're in Moat. I'm looking at all other aquariums, especially not only in Florida, but up and down the coast and also on the West Coast. Because, again, these are marine mammals, but nevertheless, they live in water, just like anything else in an aquarium lives in water. So that's really important to me. Yes, as we scale up, I definitely want to do that.
Do you have any visions of trademarking that anybody else besides Kobee, like doing a whole series of plushies?
That's something I've been so laser focused on Kobee, but it could happen. You know, it could happen because then I would bring, like, for instance, Kobee the Manatee, Tess the seahorse, and Pablo the hermit crab. They're the ensemble in all of my installments. And Tess loves learning, and Pablo's the emotional one. He always gets upset about whatever. And Kobee is the hero, the protagonist. He's knowledgeable. He's selfless. But that, that's on the back of my mind, Melissa. We'll have to see eventually, because I could see that working as we scale up, and if we get another partner on, sure.
Now you keep saying you go to these author visits and school visits. So I'm trying to promote you as well. So tell me what it's like how people book you and what your actual author visit is like when you go to a school, what you actually do during that time.
Okay. Basically, and I'm in Pennsylvania, and I hooked up with an author group. I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and this author group's in Delaware and Chester County. So I hooked up with them. I do a lot of author visits in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and Chester County, Pennsylvania. And we would pre-COVID, we would probably do, I guess about 10 visits in the fall and 10 visits in the spring during the school season. And it's a blast. People come from all over. There's a lot of experts in there, a lot of big best-selling authors, New York Times, and Robert Scott Thayer's there too. But and it's such fun. It's such fun, Melissa, because I always look forward to going into the classrooms. Usually I'll do second grade and third grade. Again, the books are targeted K through 3, but just to watch the children's expressions when I talk about manatees. Again, I remember I'm in Pennsylvania. Not many people know about manatees. It's now growing, which is good. But still, now Geico, the Geico insurance company, I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago, they actually had 3 manatees or 4 manatees in their commercials. That was a nationwide media blitz with manatees, which is good. So the awareness of manatees is slowly building up, which is wonderful. But just to see the children's expressions when I do the author visits, when I play the live song with the book, and then just talk about manatees in general, how friendly manatees are. I'll show them I'll bring big pictures where one of the manatees, this was in Jupiter, it was in the canal, the intercoastal waterway. There's a paddleboarder, and all of a sudden the paddleboarders go, but then there's 2 flippers that jump up on the paddleboard, and she jumped back, but this is a manatee. And again, the manatees are curious. They're harmless, and they love learning more about what's ever in their environment. So they can do that. If you don't know about a manatee, it would probably scare the heck out of you, But because these things are anywhere from 800 to 3,500 pounds, 8 to 10 feet long at least. So if you've never had a manatee experience, I'm warning you now, they're friendly. So don't be afraid.
Which brings me to the point, to the question, what was your first experience of meeting a manatee? You said that you didn't grow up around one. So obviously, I would love to know your first experience of one.
Actually, believe it or not, like I said, I started the project in 2010. And it was 2013 that we put book 1 out, Kobee Manatee Heading Home to Florida. And again, I learned, I made some contacts at Blue Spring State Park and other places to do author visits. Well, I decided, you know what? I never seen a manatee yet. And before I do my author visit, I'm going to go up to Crystal River, Florida. Crystal River is a big area where you can see the manatees really close, and so is Blue Spring, by the way. But Crystal River, you can actually go out in a kayak or a paddleboard during manatee season, and they'll go right by them. So my first experience was, I guess, I was back in 2013, early the winter of 2013. And my first, boy, I'll tell you, I was on the kayak. Oh, by the way, I learned, don't use a kayak to see manatees. Use a paddleboard. Okay. Anyway, they'll come right up to you. And this guy had to be about 2,500, 3,000 pounds. And he just, I thought he was going to tip the kayak because as he came under, I said, oh my God. But he knew just to get low enough. Then he stopped and looked. So they're fascinating creatures. They really are.
Wow, I'm surprised you didn't fall over and tip
Well,
it. You're excited.
That was my first experience, and these things are big. These marine mammals are unbelievably big, and the irony is that they are herbivores. They only eat seagrass. They only eat manatee grass, turtle grass, that kind of thing. And here's another interesting thing the kids love. You guess what the first cousin of a manatee is?
I have no idea.
An elephant. The elephant is the first cousin of, if you can picture a manatee, the dark gray, the eyes, picture an elephant, dark gray and eyes, elephants are also herbivores. And what's interesting about a manatee, the West Indian manatee, which is also a Florida manatee, if that manatee that jumped up and put his flippers on the paddleboard, each of those flippers has 3 to 4 fingernails. And if you were to take an x-ray of that manatee flipper, it would, and the kids are fascinated by this, it would look just like an x-ray of a human hand. Because many, many millions of years ago, like I said, they're related to the elephant. So manatees were land animals at first. And we're going way back 40, 50 million years ago. And the kids are fascinated by that. And then I think the manatees said, well, look, we love partying in the water, so we're going to turn into manatees. And the other gang, like, hey, we like the desert. We're going to be elephants. So this common ancestor is how the manatees and the elephants developed.
I love how you said they love partying in the water.
Yeah, so and they do.
So what was going through your mind when you actually saw one up close? Were you like shaking? Like were you nervous?
It was fear, but I knew. I said, look, Robert, these guys, they're friendly. They won't hurt you. They're just curious. And that's what he was, he or she. That's what they are. They're just curious. So that's why I'm telling your audience, don't be afraid of a manatee. They're big and they can, you're going to stand back and you're going to be a little scared, but they're really friendly animals. They really are.
Wow. I just can't even imagine being in a, what'd you say, a canoe, a kayak?
I was in a kayak, but I'll never do that again. You want better vision, do a paddleboard. So the next time
why would you suggest a paddleboard? Yeah.
Well, I guess we were out there. There was only a couple of us in the kayaks. And I'd say the majority, 80, 90% were in paddleboard. So by the time my little expedition was over, I was kind of sore and in the uncomfortable places there. Whereas a paddleboard, you're standing, so I learned. And plus a paddleboard, you'll be able to see out much further. Other manatees may be heading your way. Whereas in a kayak, you're down to almost water level and it's harder to see these magnificent marine mammals. So I highly recommend a paddleboard.
Wow. I just can't even imagine that just sounds like such an awesome experience. But of course,
and I have a good friend. He, I guess it was a few years back. He went to Puerto Rico on a vacation and he was on a beachfront, hotel there out on his balcony. And he thought, Robert, I see a couple giant rocks. But then he went out maybe 5 minutes later and these rocks moved. They were big. And then he knows my background with manatees. He took a picture. He says, I think I just saw my first manatee. And he was right. So they're just fascinating creatures. The manatees in Puerto Rico, a Florida manatee and a manatee in Puerto Rico are under the West Indian manatee group family. They just happen to be called the Antillean manatee in Puerto Rico, Jamaica, over towards Belize in the Caribbean. And in Florida, obviously, they're the Florida manatee. But they're basically, if we were to put a Florida manatee up with an Antillean, there's very, very minor, I think it's minor DNA changes. They're that hard to tell apart, physically. You actually have to look at DNA and RNA things to tell the difference.
Wow. I'm so impressed with that much detail. How much research goes into your books?
Oh, that's it. Again, since I was a young 7-year-old, I've always enjoyed science and research. So plenty of research goes into it. In fact, when I send my drafts, my manuscripts over to the editor, she's chopping away at not only the storyline, but, Bob, you got to get the Kobee's fun facts down more. There's too much information. And obviously she's right, Susan. So, but I research and make sure everything, then I bring in my experts to let them do their real good research and make sure we refine it to what we want to do in the book with Kobee's fun facts. That's why I'm so proud of each book being as good as it can be. And here's another thing. You're going to get a kick out of this. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Speaking of research, we got Kobee's book 1 and 2 in mainland China back in, I guess it was early 2019. But I wanted to tell my agent there in Beijing and also the publisher, I needed to, I want to see what's going on, even though it's going to come across in Chinese. And I'm glad I did that because especially, because my name, Robert Scott, the Kobee Manatee brand, I made sure they, since we're trademarked, I made sure that trademark was on the front of the book and my author name. And I'm so glad that they sent it over to me. It's all in simplified Chinese language, Mandarin, but still, I translated only a couple of things. For book 2, when Kobee Manatee, this is the wild weather adventure, he goes from Key West, Florida, over to Nassau, Bahamas, to surprise his sister Kim on her birthday. And if you know about the Atlantic Ocean, to get from Florida to the Bahamas, you need to cross the mighty Gulf Stream. Mm-hmm. Well, in my Chinese translations, when I brought it over to English, it said, Kobee Manatee's going from Key West, Florida to Nassau, and then he's in the Gulf of Mexico. So they mixed up the Gulf, the Gulf Stream with Gulf of Mexico. So if I didn't look at that, because they were going to pass it, all the little Chinese children would think, the Gulf of Mexico is between the Bahamas and Florida. No, the Gulf of Mexico is west of Florida. And here's another funny one. This was in book 1 in China, coming across the fun facts again. A Kobee Manatee starts his voyage back to Florida at Cape Cod. Okay. And actually the distance from Cape Cod to Florida, Blue Springs State Park in Florida, is about 1,200 miles. Okay. In the Chinese version, when I translated it, they had 200 miles. So again, the little Chinese children would have thought, oh my gosh. So Cape Cod, Massachusetts, to Florida is 200 miles. That's not far. So I'm so glad I was able to I told them that, because if I didn't, I would be, hey, this author doesn't know what he's talking about. What is this? What is this? This isn't true. So I'm so glad I did that.
That reminds me of the Netflix things. I'm going to just bring it up. The Outer Banks, where they said you could catch a ferry from the Outer Banks to Chapel Hill. I'm like, there's no way you can catch a ferry. It's inland.
You can go to Ocracoke.
You can go to get to the mainland and then drive, but they had to take the ferry all the way.
That's funny. Exactly. So you see how people mix things up and that's why it's so important that I need to refine everything. And then I also have an editor. She'll edit and chop more stuff out so we can get it down again to that reading level for the children. And speaking of reading level, each of my Kobee Manatee series installments is measured, Lexile measurement. So each of my books is going to have a Lexile level to let the teachers and parents and grandparents know the reading ability, how well it matches to his or her child. And that's so important too. I wanted to make sure I did that.
I love that. And also the Great Blue Hole. I've got to really talk about that because I had to look it up because I was like, is that really a thing? Because I had never heard of it before. And I looked it up and I looked at the images and I'm like, wow, just imagining.
Yes.
So I love the fact that you put something real that the kids can actually sit back and research more about it.
Absolutely.
In your book.
Yeah, because I always had a passion for Belize. again through my research, and I said, that's when I discovered the great blue hole. I said, look at this monster. And the great blue hole is phenomenal. From an aerial shot, you'll see a giant blue circle in the beautiful turquoise clear water. And this blue hole goes down to about 420 feet deep, and it's about 1,000 feet wide. And what it is, and all these blue holes are ancient sinkholes. And I learned that from Dr. Tracy Finera. And sinkholes many, many millions of years ago, thousands of years ago, were formed. And as the sea level rose, that's how they became blue holes. It's fascinating. And as a matter of fact, December of 2018, Fabian Cousteau, Sir Richard Branson, and the sub-pilot went from the top of the blue hole all the way down to the bottom.
Wow.
And they did discover plastic in some beer cans all the way down at the bottom, which is more evidence, we got to clean the oceans up. We need to get rid of the plastic pollution and pollution in general, and really tackle climate change. So that was an eye opener for all of us, because that was the first time human eyes went to the bottom of the blue hole.
Wow. I mean, I can't even the great big blue hole.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. But I like the fact that when you're going to the blue hole, what is it? The crab falls in. Which one?
Pablo. Oh, Pablo.
He falls in, and the turtle dives down, and then you actually add facts about the turtle in there because the turtle dives down to save it.
Because I was so impressed with, like I said, when I'm in Florida, when I went over to the turtle marine life center, I was just so impressed with loggerhead turtles. And again, my research, I called the doctor in charge of the loggerheads. I think he was a vet also. But I said, how deep can these loggerheads dive? And to my astonishment, they go down about 425 feet. So I said, oh, perfect, because the great blue hole, like I said, is about 420 feet. So if Pablo's going down the hole, Kobee couldn't rescue him. Manatees couldn't go, but the loggerhead turtle, Tamika, sure could. So I said, you know what? We'll have to see what happens. And does Tamika rescue Pablo, or what happens here?
I love that. So is there any more? What's your next step with Kobee? I know you just started this, you just released this book, just published this book. It's just come out. But what's your next step? Where's Kobee going now in your next adventure, do you think?
Well, actually, during COVID, as many of us were all, cabin bound. So what I did, I wrote Kobee Manatee Christmas Magic. So my next Kobee book is going to be a holiday book. And again, to give you a little background, what are we doing here? Okay, Kobee, there's something off the west coast of Florida called Christmas. I think it's called Christmas Reef. And again, that's where I want Dr. Finera to do a little more research for me. But that's the crux of the story. And something happens Christmas Eve. And it's up to, it's up to Kobee and the gang to really solve this problem so we can get on with Christmas Day. So that's it in a nutshell. Kobee Manatee Christmas Magic is my plan. And if everything goes as planned, I figure within the next 2 to 3 years, that'll be out.
And then I see when you bring that out, I see it being paired with a Christmas ornament or Christmas Kobee, like in a Santa Claus or something like that.
Yes.
Paired with that.
Yeah. I actually have, if you go to KobeeManatee.com, you'll see under the shop, I have ornaments on there now. We do have a Kobee Manatee Christmas ornament set to go.
See, there you go.
Again, I always think ahead. I got to plan ahead, Melissa. That's the whole trick here.
So what do you think your business background has helped you become the successful children's author then?
On the business background side, and also for my mentor, Mr. Lloyd Remick, he's my counsel, colleague, and friend. Writing a business plan is so, you need to do that in any kind of business, whether you're an author or a plastic maker, or what you shouldn't be, no more plastic makers now, or any, auto mechanic or whatever kind of business you want to start. But it's so important to have a business plan, because the plan will give you deadline dates, when this should be done by, when this should be done by. And any good business person knows things always change. Nothing stays according to plan. Look at COVID-19, how that messed every plan up in the world. But having that business plan is a wonderful compass. It's a wonderful compass, so you can stay in the direction of your goals and your objectives. And eventually, even though there's going to be some challenges and setbacks, you're still heading on that magnetic north on the compass. And that's so important. It's to do that. Have that business plan.
Wow. I mean, I'm just so impressed with, like I said, the level of research put in the books. Because most of the time, children's books, they don't give practical tips. They talk about, the cute little things, and you kind of have to pull out and research a little bit to add to it. But I like the fact that you basically could, homeschooling moms and teachers could actually put, or homeschooling dads as well, can actually use a whole lesson around this book.
Absolutely. And speaking of lessons, we're on Teachers Pay Teachers. All the guides are free. Again, the latest guide is, and the guide titles are the same titles as the book. So my latest Teachers Pay Teachers guide is Kobee Manatee Climate Change and the Great Blue Hole Hazard. And the beauty is they're free. The teachers can make lesson plans from it. If they get the book, it's more fun because the children, the students can follow along. Maybe they're going to make something fun or do this or play this game. And again, it's more awareness for building for the young generation about how bad climate change is and how bad plastic pollution is. It's unbelievable.
Do you think that this will help save the planet, or is it going to be to the point when by the time they get grown up, the planet's going to be too far gone?
No, I think, and this is what Dr. Fanera said, it's up to you and me. Every one of us has to contribute. It's not just, the world as a whole. Yeah, climate change is big and it's going around the world, but it's up to every individual to participate. Use those, no more recyclable bags. Use a reusable fabric bag. Use 100% cotton or linen clothes. No more polyester. And if we each do our part, as little as it may seem to you, the Earth ecosystem as a whole is going to get better, I believe. I really believe. Now we have COP26 coming up with I think this is in Switzerland, where President Biden's going over all the big leaders of COP26, and they're going to be talking about climate change and how we really need to get the ball rolling. We're behind in what we were supposed to do from the last meeting, I think was 2015. Now we need to really get the ball rolling. So I really think this is going to do well. I really think President Biden's going to do well with this message.
Because it seems like he's very big on making sure that the climate change, it stops, and that improving our environment.
Absolutely. Yes. He has in his infrastructure bill, I know they were fighting back and forth, but eventually it's going to get passed. Climate change is in there, and hopefully that's going to pass with climate change in there. I know they had to chisel back on the funds, and I'm not sure what the latest is. I didn't see the news yet, but hopefully all this is going to work itself out. I really believe it will. And whatever I can do to help President Biden get him a Kobee Manatee Climate Change and the Great Blue Hole Hazard book to the White House, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Which brings me to another question. Kind of popped in my head as we were talking, because we were talking about how, children, trying to reach children to make a change. Do you ever see Kobee Manatee becoming a cartoon?
I'm glad you asked that. As a matter of fact, going back to my author visits in the schools, when I'm done when I almost finished the presentation, when's Kobe's movie coming out? Is Kobee going to be on TV? So these children are excited. Mm-hmm. They're really excited for this Kobee Manatee character. And that's definitely a goal. It's definitely one of my goals. Again, but to scale up, I need a whole lot more capital for that. That's why I need a publishing partner, or a partner in general, that we can scale this thing up together, because I know it's going to be a big success. Just from the little bit of, that I've done already, especially with the school visits and just the feedback I get on, this product's great. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that good things are coming for Kobee.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you've been blessed so far with being able to work with 4 amazing people as your experts on the show. So, I mean, on the books. So I have it all feeling that in a couple of years there's going to be a Kobee Manatee.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'll do whatever I can. So yes, I've been blessed so far. So let's see what the future holds.
Okay, so I'm going to put it out there, because I always ask this whenever I see something that it's an amazing thing and I really think it needs to go to a movie or cartoon level. Who would you say would be the voice of Kobee?
Oh, Um, Alfonso Ribera, the guy on America's Funniest Home Videos.
And the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the one that
Yeah.
dances to,
I just feel because the way he's upbeat, he's positive, and Kobe's upbeat and positive. And I thought about this for Test the Seahorse, maybe Kristen Bell. And then for Pablo, I wasn't sure yet. I'm not sure. But I was looking into different things, but definitely those, but Pablo, I'm still thinking about.
I love that. Now, our time is almost up. Is there one last little nugget before we talk about where we can find Kobee and stuff that you want to share?
Sure. Actually, I always do this at the end of my author visits in schools. I always tell the children, and this is a quote of mine, the uniqueness of you is your priceless gift. I always say that, and I hope it's ingrained in them and they understand, since each of us is unique. You're unique, Melissa. Mm-hmm. Each of your audience members is unique. I'm unique. Kobe's unique. So each of us is unique in our own way, and putting it all together, that's how we make the world go round. We're all connected in one way or another. That
is so true. And like you said, Kobee is unique, Kobee Manatee. So tell us where we can find out more information about Kobee Manatee.
Okay, you can go to Kobe's site, KobeeManatee.com. Kobe's also on Amazon. You can find Kobee at Barnes & Noble and all independent bookstores.
And if they want to get in contact with you to do an author visit, how do they do that?
They can write me directly. It's R.S. Thayer, Thayer, at ThompsonMillPress.com. And that's and I'll respond to any email that I get.
Hey, thank you so much, Robert, for coming on and for sharing about Kobee. He's so cute. He is just the cutest little thing ever. But like I said, I'm really partial to that sea turtle because of North Carolina and being around the sea turtle. And look, there's the crab right there. And
there's Pablo. There they are.
I totally blamed on that one. So, but I want to thank you for coming on and for sharing your passion for manatees, for sharing your passions for climate change. Like we said before we came on, my daughter is studying her PhD in environmental toxicology. So, it's important that everybody can, one little person, one little change that we make can affect the whole world.
Right. And it will. Yes. We can get rid of this darn climate change. It's in my song. Let's stop climate change. We can do it.
Yep. So, guys, I will put in the show notes everywhere where you can find Robert, as well as where you can get Kobee Manatee books and his plushies and Christmas ornaments and everything else that he has. And I'm looking forward to maybe one day him coming back and talking about the launch of the new cartoon or the launch of the Kobee.
That would be wonderful. Or I can give you an update. Or can we get Kobee in the White House? Whatever.
Kobee in the White House too. Kobee with President Biden or whatever presidents at the time.
That's it. Exactly.
So, as always, guys, be blessed. And most importantly, keep chatting and do what you can for climate change. I'm adding that for you.
Perfect.